Hey guys, we're live. It's Brian Krassenstein here and Ed Krassenstein.
How you doing?
We have a lot to talk about today, including this morning's breaking news of another Mueller probe charge being brought against a man named Alex Zwaan. Uh, this is a very interesting charge that we're really going to try and dissect here in a minute. Just give us a few seconds just to prepare everything for the show. Alright, so in case you missed the news this morning, a man named Alex Zwaan was charged by the Mueller probe by the U.S. but by the DOJ. This man was a
He was a Dutch attorney that was working in London
for a company called Skaden, and he also happened to be the son-in-law of a wealthy Russian-Ukrainian oligarch named German Khan, and we'll go a little bit deeper into this in a minute.
Well, I think it's significant in many ways because not only is it another person who's appears to be cooperating with the Robert Mueller investigation and more than likely handing over information in relation to Paul Manafort, but it also shows everybody within the White House and everybody else who Robert Mueller is going to question that Mueller is serious about filing charges for anybody who's willing to lie to him. And that's big, because when it comes to some of the White House officials like Hope Hicks and the others within the White House, whether it's a high-up-ranking official or somebody that, a coffee boy, no matter who it is, Mueller's really serious about this, and if you lie to him, you're going to be charged.
Yeah, so let's start with what the charges were. The charges basically are against Mr. Van der Zwaan, and they claim that he lied to FBI agents. This is the same basic charge that they got Michael Flynn on and they got George Papadopoulos on.
I think it's also important to note that in those charges, it also says that he deleted emails. And he deleted emails that he had with an unnamed person within the charge.
Person A.
Person A, who is 99.9% certain to be Paul Manafort.
Well, I wouldn't jot that down quite yet. I think it's pretty clear it's Paul Manafort, but it might also be someone else. The reason I say that is because if this is a crime that Manafort was already charged with, they wouldn't have mentioned him as person A. They would have actually stated his name. So this could be related to a crime that Manafort has yet to be indicted on.
I'm thinking that's the case. I really did. It seemed. I mean, he's so whoever this is, they're very close to Rick Gates, and they're very close to this attorney who basically helped conceive a story that. Well, we'll talk about that a little later. About this lawyer Van der Zwaan actually worked to kind of hide a conspiracy that Rick Gates and Paul Manafort were taking part in.
That's correct. I'll just chime in here. My thoughts were that it could have been actually his father-in-law who person A is, who is Mr. German Khan. It could just go deeper, and that could be the person, but I don't want to say that. I'm gonna err on it being Paul Manafort at the time, but we don't quite know that. And basically, what it says is that Van der Zwaan claimed to the Mueller investigators that he hadn't spoke to Gates or person A since I think it was August of 2016.
I believe
August of 2016 for Gates, and it was sometime in 2014 for person A. And it turns out that he actually spoke to them both in September of 2016. So he's lying
right before the inauguration, a couple months before the election. I mean.
Okay. Now let's go in a different direction from here, and how this all relates to everything else. if you might recall, a company called Alpha Bank and Alpha Group were mentioned several times about a year ago, when number one, the Steele dossier came out. When the Steele dossier came out, it mentioned the Alpha Group. I believe it was 8 different times. They spelled it incorrectly. They spelled it ALPHA instead of ALFA,
Well,
which a lot on the right said, "Oh, it's a fake dossier because they spelled it wrong."
Well, alpha, you normally spell alpha with a PH, so that's where that mistake came from.
Yeah. So basically, you heard about it from the Steele dossier. The dossier actually mentioned him 8 times. It also mentioned German Kahn 1 time. German Kahn is one of the owners of the Alpha Group, which owns Alpha Bank. Now, we also heard of Alpha Bank approximately a year ago again, when I believe it was a Washington Post and maybe The Intercept did stories regarding connections between Alpha Bank and Trump Tower. Now, they claim that Alpha Bank had pinged the Trump Tower email server something like 3,000 times, which represented 80% of all pings that the server had received.
Yeah, and I mean, there are numerous stories about that, and people are wondering why this was happening at the time.
Yeah, and we don't know that there were some stories after that, which kind of brought into question whether Alpha Bank was actually connected to Trump Tower, whether it was possibly just a spam server that Trump organization used. And that was kind of why the weird pings were happening. So it's all coming full circle, and it's back in the news now, Alpha Bank. And the one thing that most people are missing is this connection to Alpha Bank via German Kahn.
Well, and so basically, Vander Zwaan, who was charged today and who's expected to plead guilty and cooperate with Mueller, he worked for this company Brian mentioned earlier, Skadden ARP. And Paul Manafort and Rick Gates were working for the president in Ukraine at the time. His name was Viktor Yanukovych. And Yanukovych actually jailed the opposition leader in the election process. And where Vander Zwaan comes into the picture is he actually helped conceive a plan that would basically say that Yanukovych did not have political motives to jail his political opponent. And Manafort was working for this Yanukovych person, who was also very closely tied with a political party that's very closely tied to the Kremlin. So you can kind of see where this all comes together. And you have to imagine that Vander Zwaan has a lot of information on this, and probably has a lot of information that can help Mueller in his case against Paul Manafort and several other Russians.
Oh, absolutely. And Vander Zwaan's father-in-law, German Kahn, owned the bank, and he also was incredibly close to the Kremlin. Now, the Steele dossier claims that Alpha Group, which one of the owners is Kahn, had a kind of an agreement with Vladimir Putin where they would give and take, so they would both help each other out. Where Putin would help him out from a I guess like a national standpoint, like promoting them. Mm-hmm. Alpha Group would help Putin by giving him advice on how to be perceived better in America and in the West, as well as any legal concerns that he might have for certain aspects of his operation.
So you can kind of see where this whole conspiracy all starts forming, especially after the 13 Russian indictments we had last week. It's kind of everything's kind of coming together, linking in Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, now this attorney, Alpha Group, and the Kremlin,
and then Kahn. Kahn was pretty much the go-between between Alpha Group and Putin. So I mean, we don't have all the facts yet, but I believe that we can kind of see where this is headed, and it pretty much continues to legitimize the Steele dossier, which mentioned the Alpha Group 8 times, mentioned Kahn, mentioned his business partners, and mentioned the connection that they had with one another.
Yeah, and like one of the commenters said, wasn't Alpha bank the one pinging the Trump server? And that's what Brian just mentioned a few minutes ago. Yes, they were, and that's something that. Why were they pinging the Trump servers? Was Trump aware of this? And if he was aware of this, I would think that in itself would probably enter him into this conspiracy.
Yeah, well, the theory was that Alpha Group were pinging the server as a sort of back channel communicating. Whether that was the case or not, no hard evidence of that has surfaced yet.
Well, nothing that we see, but we don't know
Exactly,
what Mueller has.
exactly.
And Mueller has a lot of the different server records and all the other stuff. So.
Oh yeah, exactly, and we know that this more and more is just going to come out. Zwaan is expected to plead guilty later this afternoon. He will actually be the fourth person in this probe to plead guilty. Number 1 was Michael Flynn. Number 2, George Papadopoulos. Number 3 is the person I mentioned yesterday, the American who actually sold identities to the Russian individuals who are accused in the 13 indictments to have tried to influence the election, and that man is named Richard Piñato, I believe.
Okay.
And he's an American. He's the first American to actually be indicted.
Well, what's interesting about this is that even though Vander Zwaan is a Russian guy, he was living in London. I believe he's Dutch, but he speaks Russian, and he's tied. His father-in-law was a Russian guy.
Yeah,
so
Russian.
He is extraditable because he's in London, and we have a treaty with England.
Yeah,
so
unless he flees to Russia.
Yeah, well, but it appears that he's going to be pleading guilty to these charges.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Mueller gave him a good deal in doing so, as long as he cooperates fully. So it should definitely be interesting to see how this unfolds. And you saw Trump again today. He was having several Twitter rants, and some were about Russia. Today he actually criticized Obama for not doing more about Russia. He said he said that I myself have done more about Russia than Obama did when he was in office, which is a complete and utter lie. Obama actually kicked some Russians out of the country.
Yeah.
He closed down their facilities.
Issued sanctions.
He implemented sanctions, and Trump's absolutely done nothing. So it's just another lie.
And I see a lot of people saying in the comment section that Robert Mueller's brilliant. I agree. He's basically backing the president into a corner right now where he can't get out. If the president tries to fire Rosenstein to impede the Mueller investigation, it's gonna appear as if he is supporting Russia now. And Mueller's doing this, it appears, in a way to kind of handcuff the president and not allow him to hamper the investigation.
Exactly. And while you say Mueller's brilliant, you also have to understand that the people on his team are brilliant as well. He has some of the best attorneys on his team working for him.
And I just wanted to remind you guys, if you have any questions, comments, just tweet on Twitter with the hashtag Krassenstein Live, and we will get to those questions here in a bit and try and answer them. We're also looking at the comments section on the right-hand side, but it goes pretty fast and it's hard to concentrate on what we're talking about and what's being said at the same time, so I'm sure we're going to be missing a lot of those questions. Let's see, what else do we have here? Another interesting fact is that Skaden has had employed Vander Zwaan, but they've also employed Paul Manafort's daughter. So there could be another connection with Manafort. Well, clearly there's a connection with Manafort since there's a connection with Gates, but that just goes to further show how intertied everything is. And the fact that
well, I think this little indictment today kind of brings some things together. Like first we had the Trump linked individuals over here, and then we had the Russia indictments over here. And this one kind of, not fully, but I think it kind of brings a little bit. It kind of brings the two together in some ways. And I think we're going to see more of that as more indictments are unsealed and more plea agreements are made.
Yeah, I saw a couple people ask if we talked about person A yet, and who we thought they were, or when we'd find out. We actually started this out talking about person A. Ed here said that he's pretty confident as Paul Manafort. I'm a little bit skeptical because if it was Manafort, if Manafort had already been indicted on a crime related to this, they would have just mentioned his name. They haven't mentioned his name, so it's either a crime that Manafort hasn't been indicted for,
at the same
or someone else.
At the same time, Mueller probably still wants to flip Manafort, and he can sort of use this against him, and maybe hope that Manafort maybe even lies more, and just to test Manafort's honesty. It should be interesting to see who Person A ends up being, but I myself, I think that it's going to be Paul Manafort. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. What else do we have? Do we want to move on to questions, or?
Well, how about we move on to a few other news topics?
How about Donald Trump Jr. and him liking the conspiracy theory about the shooting?
So David Hogg is one of the students who's actually being touted as being pretty heroic in the Parkland school shooting, and he was one of the survivors. He saw some of his classmates get killed, some of his friends get killed. And he's actually been I think he's been an inspiration, him along with Emma Gonzalez and some of the other kids at that school. And so there was a story today put out by True Pundit, which is a far right-leaning...
Pundit? Or True Pundit?
It was True Pundit.
Okay.
It's a right-leaning news organization who some people believe is connected to Russia. So they put out a story basically attacking David Hogg because his father's an FBI agent, and saying that the left is basically giving him his talking points.
Yeah, I could actually...
Rather than this stuff coming from his heart, True Pundit saying, oh, it's just talking points. It's not really him speaking, it's the left speaking, telling him what to say. And since his father's a former FBI agent, the FBI is just in on this too, which is just crazy.
Yeah, the tweet that Donald Trump Jr. liked was from One America News. I'm sure some of you guys heard of them. It's a very right-leaning newspaper. They favor Trump heavily. It's actually, there's been ex-employees who came out and said that they pretty much have a policy of not reporting on anything negative toward Trump. Anyway, One America News posted the following tweet. Could it be that this student is running over for his dad, who works as an FBI agent at the Miami field office, which botched tracking down the man behind the Valentine Day massacre? Just wondering, just connecting the dots. And Donald Trump Jr. liked this tweet. This tweet also linked to that Gateway Pundit. We haven't seen Donald Trump Jr. come out and show any empathy to these families and family members and friends of the individuals who lost their lives. We know that Donald Trump Jr. is a huge gun advocate. There's pictures of him. And well, I think it's funny that he liked this tweet, and this tweet isn't even accurate. It says that Hogg's father works as an FBI agent in the Miami field office, and the article that's under it says that he's an ex-FBI retired.
Yeah, and it's why the president's son shouldn't be pushing these conspiracy theories. He should be one of the people standing up and saying, I'm so sorry that this happened. We need to come up with a solution to prevent this from happening again. And instead he's attacking the victims. And that it's sad.
He just wants to continue shooting his elephants and tigers.
Yeah, it's really sad. And it disgusts me. Just thinking about it is just disgusting.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's not the only conspiracy theory that's out there either, and it's sick. If you actually read some of the posts on Twitter, it really makes you disgusted. There's another.
Well, it's like Columbine all over again.
Well, or Sandy Hook.
Yeah, or Sandy Hook.
Basically, there's another conspiracy that's kind of spreading on both Twitter and 4chan, and it's basically saying that the Parkland the children at the Parkland High School were crisis actors, and they just made this all up, and it's a big conspiracy. Basically, the 4chan conspiracy post uses the fact that these children are tweeting people on the left, retweeting people on the left. In fact, Emma Gonzalez retweeted one of my posts, and it uses that as a way to somehow
that is evidence to claim that the left is pushing these kids in a certain direction.
It's disgusting. I mean, these parents are mourning these kids, and you have literally thousands of people, at least it seems that way, saying, "Oh, it didn't happen." It's like Holocaust deniers.
It's the same. These are the same people who deny the Holocaust.
It's like how can you be that distant from reality? I just don't understand. How can you be that stupid? Yeah, you're stupid. You're dumb.
Well,
if you're saying that you're dumb.
Okay, but do we know if these people who are actually spreading these conspiracy theories, do we actually know if they're Americans?
We don't.
Do we know they're not the Russian trolls?
We don't.
Being paid by the Kremlin in order to sow discourse in America.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know, and that's a scary thing, I guess.
Most definitely. There's a lot has come from Florida governor, our governor in our state. We live in Florida, Rick Scott, about this. And at first, he said that he's willing to examine every possible solution to try and figure out how we can stop these school shootings. And then he came out and said that he thinks FBI Director Christopher Wray should resign because somehow they missed figuring out about the killer here and didn't stop.
How does Christopher Wray have anything to do with it?
Yeah,
he's been the head of the FBI for what, 3 months?
Well, it's Trump pushing this. Trump's probably pushing it. Meanwhile, Rick Scott plans to run for, or most likely will be running for Senate in this upcoming election. Against current incumbent Bill Nelson, who's actually running for his 4th term as a senator here in the state of Florida. And I just really hope people get out and vote, and especially if you're for gun reform and you want to see something done. I don't think Rick Scott's going to do it. I don't think he's the person to do it. I think Bill Nelson's on the left, and I think if you want somebody to do it, to come up with some sort of reform or solution, Nelson's going to be the one who helps move things forward.
Yep, I agree. And just more reason for Democrats to get out there and vote. I can't stress enough how important this election is. It's just unbelievable how important it is.
So I'll go over a few of the Krassenstein Live hashtag questions and comments.
Okay.
Maybe you can help answer them. Krassenstein Live. It seems unlikely to me that this guy who made fake IDs in California for Russians doesn't know more and didn't do more for other Russians. What do you think? So he's actually referring to George Zwaan?
No, he's referring to Richard Piñato.
Oh, Richard Piñato.
The man who was actually the American that was indicted. I don't really know. It made it seem as if this guy didn't realize who he was selling these fake identities to. It made it seem as if this guy was just a thief who basically sold fake identities to whoever wanted them, and he didn't realize he stepped into this huge investigation.
Well, he's in Russia, so they can't actually get him here, or they can't actually if they can't get him to plead guilty to anything. So there's no hope of actually having him.
Well, Piñata.
Oh, Piñata. I'm sorry. Yeah, Piñata. So Piñata, do we know if he's going to plead guilty, or is it just?
He did.
It's a plea deal.
Yes.
So he's working with Mueller.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's really any connection beyond just it was a sale. I don't. To me, it doesn't seem as if he knew much more. But
why do you think? Why would you think he plead guilty then?
Because they have him on selling false identification.
And what did he plead guilty to?
Selling false identification, I believe.
So do you really think you don't think he'd try and fight this? He just plead guilty for nothing?
I don't know.
I think he has something to get Mueller.
That's a possibility. Yeah, that's a possibility.
All right, let's see. The next tweet is: does this mean that real Donald Trump could be impeached, prosecuted, end up in prison? It really comes down to, can they show a link? Can they show that Trump was one of the co-conspirators in this huge conspiracy? I think Mueller's going to be successful in showing that, but we don't know the evidence he has. And if he does successfully show that, he could definitely be impeached. He could be prosecuted once he leaves office. Whether he can actually be prosecuted during his presidency is up for debate, and that would have to be for the courts to decide. If it's related to a state crimes of any sort, he could be prosecuted on a state level, and that would not be pardonable. we just have to see how this unfolds. What do you think?
No, I agree with everything you said there. I think that right now we got to concentrate on Democrats and winning the House and the Senate so that he can be impeached. Otherwise, it's going to be a long road before anything actually is done.
I really don't have hope that the current Congress is going to vote in favor by a majority of impeaching Trump, even if Mueller comes out with obvious evidence of conspiracy on behalf of the president. I just don't think it would happen.
Here's another story. I'll cut away from the Krassenstein Live. Some of you might be familiar with a woman named Rachel Crooks. She is actually running for the Ohio House on a state level. Trump actually tweeted about her today.
Indirectly, he didn't actually mention her name, but he referred to the Washington Post article, and that was talking about Rachel Crooks.
Yeah, I'll read you the tweet that he made earlier today at around 9 o'clock this morning. A woman I don't know, and to the best of my knowledge never met, is on the front page of the fake news Washington Post, saying I kissed her for 2 minutes yet in the lobby of Trump Tower 12 years ago. Never happened. Who would do this in a public space with live security cameras running? Another false accusation. Why doesn't the Washington Post report the story of the woman taking money to make up stories about me? One had her home mortgage paid off. Only Fox News so reported. Doesn't fit the mainstream media narrative. So Rachel Crooks is she's getting a lot of traction. She's the woman who accused Trump of trying to kiss her.
One of the
19 women that accuses him of sexual assault. She was relatively unknown until this. Because, she only had like 5,900 followers on Twitter. She's not running for a U.S. House seat. She's running for a seat in the state of Ohio as a Democrat. I've actually been communicating with her last week. I'm just trying to help her out, give her some traction. And she's incredibly down to earth. She said that she wants to run because she feels that she has no say. She has this accusation against Trump, but nobody believes her. Nobody's doing it. Not nobody believes her. I believe her, but there's not much that can be done. It's kind of being pushed to the side.
It's kind of funny because after Trump made this tweet, Rachel actually tweeted that because Trump said there's video footage from the security cameras of it. So Rachel tweeted asking him to actually release that video footage.
Yeah, the tweet Rachel tweeted. I think it was within an hour of Trump's tweet, and said, "Please, by all means, share the footage from the hallway outside the 24th residential elevator bank on the morning of January 11th, 2006. Let's clear this up for everyone. It's liars like you in politics that have prompted me to run for office myself." And it shows she has all the details in there. It's hard not to believe that.
This comes from a man who actually claimed that he loves kissing women and he can get away with kissing women because he's famous.
Yeah,
his ex-wife Ivana Trump actually said in one case that Trump came home from surgery to shrink his scalp and get rid of a bald spot, and it was so painful that he took it out on her and actually raped her. And that's his ex-wife. Yeah. And that's his ex-wife who's actually still friendly with President Trump.
Yeah.
And still talks to him frequently.
So if you do want to support this woman, her name's Rachel Crooks. You can find her on Twitter. You can go to her campaign website, donate a little bit of money if you want to help her. I'm really trying to help her out because I feel she needs to have a voice in all this. And up until this point, she's had very little of a voice, and it's really been drowned out by so much other news. If this was against Bill Clinton, it would be all over the news, but nobody even knows about it. Yeah. So Rachel Crooks, go help her out if you can. Her Twitter handle is Rachel RACHEL for Ohio FOR Ohio, and she's really. I really think that she has a great shot at winning that seat, and hoping that she can help turn it to the turn the Ohio House to the Democrats. Do we have any more questions here?
Let me see. Bob McArdle says guns should be licensed and purely for the purpose of hunting, no more, no less. An amnesty for a time for people to hand over their guns. After that, it's illegal. Will be hard, but it's the way to go. You know that's an argument being made by a lot of those people on the left, but we have to keep the opinions of those on the right to heart too. You know, I think the best start is banning assault weapons. That's worked in the past, so I don't see why we can't just go back to that and ban assault weapons, make background checks more strict, have mental health checks as part of the right to own as part of if you want a license to own a gun, you need a mental health certification that says you're mentally healthy. I think those mental health checks should be reinitiated every few years to make sure you're still mentally there.
Well, it's just crazy that, like, he brought up hunting. I fish. We actually live in the water, and I fish from my back dock. And technically, you need a fishing license to throw a little metal hook into the canal and reel up a catfish or a bass or whatever you're catching. And you don't need any kind of license in most states to buy a high-powered assault rifle to hunt, to shoot animals with. Like how does that make any sense?
Well, and you can be 19 years old to buy an AR-15 that can shoot 600 rounds per minute, but you can't buy a beer. You know, it's like you can't have a glass of wine. So you're saying that these 19-year-olds are too irresponsible to drink alcohol,
and
but they're responsible enough to have AR-15.
I'm all for the 21 years old age limit for alcohol.
Yeah, same here.
But it's just hypocritical to not.
Well, it's just because the NRA is paying the politicians to vote in their favor, and you know it's funny because one of the attacks that Brian and I get frequently, people say we're being paid by George Soros to tweet against Trump, and I laugh at it. But you know, more than anything, I just laugh at it. But even say George Soros was paying us to tweet against Trump, how would that be any different than the NRA paying politicians to vote in their favor? How is that it wouldn't be any different. So, I mean, I'd happily take money from George Soros if he wants to pay me, but he doesn't do that.
George, if you're listening, you can write the check out to Brian Krassenstein. It's worth a shot, right? I'm just kidding. I wouldn't take your money if you tried paying me. Let's see, any other questions here? Somebody said that you can thank the EPA for the fishing rules. I'm not against the regulations of needing a license.
I'm for fishing license because there's certain fish out there that you can catch and you can't, and it makes you actually helps you follow the rules. You know, it's a regulation, and I think the EPA needs to be here.
You need regulations. You can't have government with no regulations. That's why the financial crisis took place, because under regulation in the mortgage industry, and we're probably headed in the same direction because Trump's deregulating everything.
Well, there's another. I see some more comments over here about the NRA and is asking if Russia's connected to the NRA, and there have been some allegations of that. I don't know. I'm not investigating it, but I'm pretty sure Mueller's probably looking into that. There was a billboard posted. I'm not sure where. I think it was yesterday that says "Kill the NRA." And those on the right and Trump supporters are all attacking whoever posted this. People are saying "kill the NRA" like it's inciting violence, and that's just ridiculous because the sign means "kill the NRA," not kill the people in it that represent the NRA. It means stop the NRA, halt it from existing. Like if somebody says, "Oh, kill the regulations," that's not kill the people who make the regulations. It's stop the regulations. So for that, all those people pushing the narrative that the left is asking for people to kill the NRA, to kill members of the NRA, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Somebody just this is off topic, but somebody just asked why nothing about Pence has come out, and I actually think that this whole Paul Manafort, Rick Gates angle it's headed in, that Mueller is kind of taking this investigation right now. I think that something could come out about Mike Pence, and the reason is that if you recall, when President Trump was trying to find his running mate, he was kind of he was pretty set on choosing Chris Christie, the New Jersey governor, for his vice president, and Paul Manafort convinced him otherwise. He actually made up a claim that the president's plane was there's something wrong with the plane, it needed maintenance, and they had to stay over another night, and that's when he had Trump meet with Mike Pence, and he really Manafort pushed Pence on Trump, and I can't help but think there has to be a reason why Manafort was so incessant on pushing Pence on the president. There has to be something there in my mind. I mean, it's possible that there isn't, but and it's possible that Pence really doesn't know anything and is really this clueless. But I find it incredibly hard to believe that Pence isn't somehow tangled into this somehow. Whether it's something minute or something huge, I think we'll find out eventually.
I find it odd that Mike Pence's name is miraculously removed from a lot of the transition team emails and documents.
He was ahead of the transition.
Yeah, something's strange there, and it's going to come down to when Mueller interviews some of these transition team members, some who are still in the campaign, still in the administration, some who are no longer there, and now with the proof that Mueller's not going to let you lie to him, and if you do, he's going to indict you. People are going to be hard pressed not to tell the truth to Mueller, especially those who aren't working for Trump anymore. I think that's going to be big.
And I think this last charge of Vander Zwaan, probably is meant to kind of send a message to people that even these minute things about deleting an email, you're going to get charged with
if you tell Mueller that you only tied one shoe instead of two shoes, you're going to be indicted. So I think that's a message that he wants to send to everyone who he's going to be interviewing from here on forward. And don't forget, he interviewed Bannon last week for 20 hours, and we don't know what came out of that.
Yeah, Seth Abramson on Twitter, he made a post earlier today, and he pretty much said, this is a message to everybody out there. If you forgot to tell Robert Mueller something, you should be on the phone immediately calling him and saying, hey, I forgot this. Hey, I know this. And that's exactly what this does. Whether that's the intention or not, we don't know. Yeah. But it certainly is. Like I said, he's brilliant, and he's backing the president into a corner. He's backing everybody into a corner where they have to turn against the president. And
the truth's going to get out. It's going to get out.
If Trump is not impeached, say in a year, he's going to be the only one left standing because everybody's going to turn on him, leave, and.
Well, we saw another congressman step down. Another Republican congressman said he's not running for re-election. I forget his name. Toomey. So these guys, and his explanation for why he's actually stepping down is basically because he doesn't want to feel like he has to defend Trump, which is very interesting. I think that's the reason a lot of these Republican congressmen
they just don't want to say it.
When you're in office, you feel like you have to defend Trump because that's your job. That's how some of these congressmen feel, representing these districts that are actually supporting Trump to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But the congressmen are starting to see some of this evidence that some of the rest of us aren't, and so they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I side with my constituents, or do I side with what I feel in my heart? And I think that's why some of them are stepping down.
Yeah, and I think. Going back to the whole Pence thing, I think that it's kind of amazing that Pence. I think it says a lot that Pence is so quiet and so hands off, and I think that's because Pence is kind of going in that direction as well. But he might be too tied in to really step away at this point.
Yeah, that's conceivable.
And I can't see him resigning. I'm sure he's wanted this position his whole life, and he's not gonna.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You get in position. You become a congressman. You become a senator. You become the vice president or president, and you want to keep that job. That's what's happening. I think.
Yeah.
Should I take a few more questions here?
Sure. Remember, if you have any questions for us, tweet with the hashtag Krassenstein Live.
Oh yeah. So another topic. This reminds me. Reinventing Carrie tweets. What do you make of Mueller looking into Kushner? Do you think this will amount to anything? So, for those who don't know, yesterday news broke, I think it was a CNN exclusive, that Robert Mueller's team is now looking into Jared Kushner and his ties, his business ties, and his discussions with Chinese officials and other government officials in relation to his own businesses. And they basically want to see if he was, doing favors in order to better his businesses. A lot's focused on his 666, I think, what is it, Washington Avenue, or one of his apartment buildings in New York City.
He has a $1.7 billion loan that's due in full of what do you call it, a balloon payment of $1.7 billion that's due sometime next year. I think it's February next year. So he has approximately 12 months to come up with $1.7 billion, which he clearly does not have. And they think that he's using his position to try and influence countries and get loans from
particularly China, because I think there's a money link from China there, and they want to see did he promise China anything during the transition that if they can provide some money for his personal financing, he will do this politically for them, and that would be huge. You're not supposed to use the office of the presidency to profit for yourself, and there's emolument clauses in the Constitution that say this is illegal. And for some reason, it seems like everybody within the Trump family, whether it's Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, or even Ivanka, they're using their office, their position in the White House in order to profit. There's another note. Ivanka recently got awarded some patents from China.
Yeah.
And these patents are like super hard to get, but it seemed like she got them fairly easily.
Yeah.
And is that a bribe? Is that a repayment for something? We don't know. And that's something.
If Donald wasn't president, would she have gotten them? And the answers.
Well, exactly. And this is something Congress should be looking into, but they're not, because Congress is represented by a majority by the GOP. It's another reason why you need to vote in the midterms this year to get some more Democrats into Congress. Let's see, there's a few more Krassenstein Live hashtags. If you have any questions on Twitter, feel free to tweet us with the hashtag Krassenstein Live. Also, while we're here, don't forget to follow us here on Periscope. It just lets you get notified when we go live. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ed Krassen, EDKRASSEN, and this is at Krassenstein, at KRASSENSTEIN. We're trying to do these live video casts every couple days,
times a week,
2 to 3 times per week. We don't have a set schedule yet, but we're just doing it as we feel needed, as there's
typically
that comes out.
Typically they're around 2 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and they run about an hour. Where the purpose is just to inform you guys. We're not trying to make money here or do anything like that. We're just trying to just inform people about what's going on. Sometimes it's easier to talk to you guys on here than to send out 280 character tweets. So this kind of lets us communicate with you guys better and answer some of your questions, whether they're about Trump, Russia, about any of the news that's going on right now around Trump, or about ourselves.
Here's a question from Zwaan, and I don't really know too much about this, but maybe you do, Brian. He asks, what do we know about Flynn and his proposed Saudi nuclear plants? Doesn't this have a lot to do with the Russians wanting the sanctions lifted?
We do know that Flynn was actually texting individuals during the Trump inauguration about these deals. I don't know enough about it. I haven't read up a ton on this, on the nuclear power plants, but I do think that there's some kind of connection there. Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI. That does not mean that that's going to be the end of it. Flynn could still be charged with other crimes, and Mueller may not have gotten to those. And the fact that he is actually Flynn is cooperating. Cooperating. The fact that Flynn's cooperating is going to
cooperating
is that doesn't mean that there's not going to be further indictments later down the road. And I think that I think that some in the media think, oh, Flynn's fine, he's going to have 6 months, but we don't know that. We don't know what's gonna happen from here on out.
Yeah, I think we're missing a huge part of the picture that only Mueller knows, and his team, even Congress and the Senate, I don't even think they know a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. Let's see here.
Somebody asked if we record these videos, but yes, they're on Periscope. You can go back to our other Periscopes. You can go to our Periscope account, but we also upload them to YouTube. It's under Ed and Brian Krassenstein.
Yeah, just Google YouTube. Search YouTube for Krassenstein, and you'll see our channel. It's nothing special yet, but I've been uploading these. And as you do that,
it's also, I have my own personal account. Ignore that.
Yeah.
That's just pictures. That's videos of my kids. Or my son. So.
Yeah,
stay away from that one unless you want to see videos.
Yeah, there's one called Ed and Brian Krassenstein Talk Trump or something like that. So you can follow us on there. You'll probably also see some other videos made about us. I think I saw one last night calling Brian a plagiarist. I saw another one saying Brian's the most ridiculous left-wing person on Twitter. So I'm sure you'll enjoy those videos too.
Yeah, about a month ago, I went to retweet somebody. I was watching my son, who's 15 months old, and he was kind of driving me a little crazy. He was running all over, throwing toys around, and I went to tweet something, and I forgot to put the person I was quoting. It was Randy Singer, and she accused me of plagiarizing. I quickly, as soon as I found out, I wrote to her apologizing, and I made another tweet giving her credit. But Alyssa Milano retweeted that I'm a plagiarist, and that kind of started a snowball effect. I don't try to retweet. I don't try to plagiarize anything. You guys can plagiarize anything I write. I don't care. I'm fine with that. I think the more the merrier because it just gets the word out. But I don't try to plagiarize people's tweets. That's the last thing I want to do.
All right, let's take. There's a few more questions coming in. Remember, if you want to write, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to tweet at us hashtag Krassenstein Live, and I'll try and get to as many as I can. Somebody named James Cameron says Trump won't release the Democratic memo unless everything about him is redacted. What's he trying to hide? I think he's trying to hide everything. I think he's trying to hide everything that would make the Devin Nunes memo look bogus, which it is.
In addition to whatever else is in the Democrats memo, which might not make him look too good.
Exactly.
I'm guessing that there's more information that kind of shows that the FBI was investigating him rather than just Carter Page, and I think that he doesn't want that to get out.
And there's other information as to how the FBI obtained the FISA warrant to monitor Carter Page, whereas Devin Nunes' memo basically says that the only reason they got this FISA was because the only reason was because the FBI said Nunes said it was one reason why the FBI was monitoring Carter Page, where there's a whole list of reasons, and that's what Congressman Adam Schiff tried saying, but Trump's not letting this memo get out.
Yeah, and I don't know when they're going to actually have this redacted version, if there's going to be redactments.
Yeah, we haven't really heard of anything. I haven't heard anything from Schiff or anyone else.
And it's kind of funny that the whole Nunes memo is just gone. Like they're not pushing that anymore. It just kind of this huge conspiracy that they're claiming. It's just they're not even talking about it on Fox News anymore. And that's the same thing that kind of happened with Uranium One. Like it was a big story, a bombshell, and then a week later it fizzles out, and they move on to the next conspiracy theory, which I'm sure they're working on right now. We just don't know what it is yet.
Exactly. Let's see. There's some more questions here. Cindy says, do you think Mueller will wait until the 2018 elections are done to start charging so that Trump could possibly be impeached with more Democrats in Congress?
We both have kind of different views.
Personally, I think Mueller's going to wait for two reasons. One reason being he doesn't want to politicize it. He doesn't want to hurt the GOP in the upcoming elections by basically saying the GOP's wrong. The other issue I think is, like Cindy says, is that I think he'd like to be able to issue a referral to Congress once the new Congress is in office. Maybe not just because they're going to be presumably more Democrat, but I think just because that new Congress will be more open to things, and they're going to be they'll be the Congress that's going to be the Congress for the next 2 years, whereas the Congress right now is going to be out in a few months.
Well, yeah. I'm kind of in between on this one. I think that it's possible that it might drag on that long, but I don't know if Mueller is going to actually hold off because he's waiting for the new Congress. It's interesting to note that even if say Mueller comes out with his report and it shows that Trump committed such and such crimes, and the House doesn't or votes not to impeach him or doesn't vote at all, that doesn't mean that when the new Congress comes in, they can't. So,
but when it comes to the referral, though, do you think if Mueller was to issue a referral, Congress doesn't vote to impeach? Do you think I don't think they would bring that referral back into Congress for new impeachment hearings. Do you?
They absolutely could do that.
Could they?
Is new Congress? All they need to do is just bring up the articles of impeachment, and then
even if it's for the exact same thing,
they can do it again. They can add to it or whatever, but all they need is the 51%, and you have impeachment. And then if you don't know, once you're impeached, like Clinton was, it goes to the Senate, and the Senate votes to convict after hearing all the evidence, and they need 2/3.
So 66
senators. 66 senators would have to vote to convict, and if the evidence is there, he'll be convicted. If there's evidence there, the Senate's a little bit less partisan, I'd say. They're not.
Yeah, well, you got to figure the Congress represents districts within America, districts in states. So, there's certain districts that are almost all red. There's certain districts that are all blue. The congressmen in those districts are going to be focused mostly on agreeing with their constituents who are super red or super blue, whereas state senators represent the entire state. And a state is made up it's more equal in a state, and there's some on the left, some on the right, some moderates. So the Senate's not going to be as far leaning to the left or as far leaning to the right. So I think impeachment, when it hits the Senate, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to do more of what's in their heart, whereas Congress is going to do more of what they want, what they think their constituents want, and in a lot of cases, their constituents are heavily to the one side or the other.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be senators who don't do that, but for the most part, I agree. I think there's definitely senators who are hyper partisan who are gonna support Trump no matter what.
Yeah, especially in the red states.
Yeah. Like Alabama, who lost a Republican senator, so that's good. So Doug Jones, thanks for winning that election. Thanks Roy Jones for running Roy Moore as a child predator.
There's some other news that recently, I think it was either yesterday or today, President Trump actually endorsed Mitt Romney for the Utah Senate seat to replace Orrin Hatch. And that's something people were wondering, would Trump endorse Romney? Because they've had a feud that's gone back a few years. And actually, Romney came out and said that he accepts Trump's endorsement, which is kind of an eye-opener. Back in 2016, he actually said he wouldn't accept a Trump endorsement because of certain things that Trump did and certain beliefs that he had that did not go along with Trump's ideologies. So it's kind of surprising, and I think to Democrats it's kind of disappointing that Romney accepted Trump's endorsement.
Yeah, I agree. Romney's tweet did accept his endorsement, but he quickly changed the narrative to, I hope that my Utah constituents will support me or endorse me. So he kind of changed his subject quickly. He probably doesn't want to get too close to that.
But I wish he'd just come out and just say, I don't agree with this president.
Or I don't want your endorsement. That wouldn't happen, but
I think it's possible. I think he could still win Utah by taking that road.
Yeah, Utah's moderate, and they're not exactly Trump supporters for the most part. Let's see some other questions here.
Cindy asked another question. Do you think there are going to be some Republicans going down with this investigation? And I think you mean Republicans other than those within the White House, like congressmen and senators. And I absolutely think that there's going to be congressmen who are going to be tied into this investigation. They're going to be questioned in this investigation, and I personally think there's going to be some indictments made. That's just my guess.
It's hard to believe that Devin Nunes, who was on the transition team, isn't somehow involved. A normal person wouldn't be acting the way he is. He's almost frantic in trying to protect the president. And if you go back to that meeting on the White House lawn or the memo, that's just not normal behavior for a congressman. And I think that, in my mind, that makes me think that there's some other connection there other than just him supporting Trump for votes.
Well, there's a lot of rumors out there about what it could be, why Nunes is so protective of the president, but I'm not going to get into them because they're really just conspiracies at this point in time. Trey Gowdy, a commenter said, I think that's why Trey Gowdy is leaving. I think Trey Gowdy, I think deep down he wants to do what's right for the country, but like I said earlier, I think these people get in Congress and they feel a need to side with their constituents, and in Gowdy's case, I think his district is heavily leaning towards Trump, so he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't know. He didn't feel right going against Trump, representing all these people who are supportive of Trump. So I think he's stepping down now that he's seen some of the evidence that's coming out in the House Judiciary and House Intel committees. I think that's the main reason he's stepping down.
I think he just...
I mean that's just, again, that's my opinion. I don't know. I'm not on the inside, but I think that's what's causing this.
Somebody said Gowdy is a former prosecutor. He knows what happens to bad people, and that's true. Gowdy is a former prosecutor. He understands the legal ramifications of what's going on, and maybe he saw something that he doesn't like and doesn't want to be associated with. We don't know. You can't actually say he's the moral authority, especially after what he did to Clinton, but that might be something.
Well, you got to realize that he's representing his constituents, and I'm pretty sure his constituents are mostly Republicans, and that's
South Carolina.
But by him going after Hillary continuously for Benghazi, I think that earned him a lot of respect among his own constituents. That helped him get reelected. That's what it comes down to here.
Somebody said, I thought you couldn't pardon while you're under investigation. And I kind of explained this yesterday. You can pardon when you're under investigation. It's just that if you're charged with a crime or you're impeached, I'm sorry, not charged, but if you're impeached for a crime, if the House impeaches Trump for certain crimes, Trump is immediately unable to pardon any individuals that are related to that crime. So if they think that Trump's going to pardon someone, say General Flynn, the House could actually impeach him the next day and prevent that if that crime that they're impeaching him for is related to something Flynn did. So there is a way around it if Republicans are willing to take that route, and that's yet to be seen.
The only time's going to tell what route they take. There's another question here from James Cameron. He says, have you been threatened by the right? I have, because I fly my flag upside down with Trump in charge. We are a nation in distress. We've been threatened to some degree.
Yesterday, I got a message from an individual who basically said, I better not ever meet you. You're going to regret it, or something like that. And I sent it to the FBI just for my own protection.
Have you received a response?
No response from the FBI. I don't expect to receive anything from the FBI. I doubt this guy was serious, but you never know. I actually Googled him, and I found out that he was actually applying for teacher jobs. So that's kind of scary in itself.
Are you serious? He wasn't using a fake name or alias or anything?
Well, unless there's somebody using his name, but his name was Googleable, and it wasn't a very common name. He actually lives here in Florida. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to take it in that direction.
Wow, that's pretty scary. When you forwarded the message to the FBI, did you send all of his info, such as his name and stuff?
Yeah, I sent the link to his profile. I sent the messages he sent me. It's kind of disgusting, some of the feedback. I made this post on Twitter yesterday. It's just showing what he sent me, and it's kind of disgusting what some of the people posted on it. saying, "Oh, you're a crybaby, you're a tattletale, you're like, why are you doing this? The FBI should arrest you for sending these reports to them and wasting their time." It's like, get real. If you're gonna threaten some random person on Facebook because you don't agree with them politically, I think you have a mental issue yourself, and that's scary. I have a 15-month-old son and a wife who I want to protect.
Exactly.
I don't want to be dealing with crazies. And I think that most of these people are just people behind a keyboard typing. And
there's another question by Cindy. She says, "Do you think anybody will be charged with treason?" And that's a good question. What do you think?
there's kind of different theories on this. Treason is actually only charged, I believe, in times of war, and or if it's a enemy, and the courts would have a hard time proving that Russia is an enemy, and we certainly aren't at war. So a treason charge is something that I doubt Mueller's going to go after. He'll go after other things that are much easier.
Maybe he'll threaten that and then have a lesser charge plea deal for some of these people. I don't know. I think like Brian said, I think it's going to be hard to get somebody on treason. I think conspiracy against the United States government is going to be a charge that we might hear again in the near future.
Yeah. I mean, what's the last treason charges that actually somebody got convicted? It was the Rosensteins, was it?
Yeah, those the ones who were put to death?
Yeah, and that was a far cry from a president of the United States. I personally cannot see a treason charge coming about, even if Trump committed the worst treason possible. I just can't see Mueller going after him in that way, because it will be incredibly difficult to convict him of it, and Mueller wants to make sure that he has an airtight case, and putting that treason charge in there is probably going to not help his cause.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions? You can tweet at us with #Krassenstein Live, or you could just leave a comment here in the chat box on Periscope, but we don't always see those. Again, for those who are unaware, you can follow us on Periscope. There's an app you can download for your phone, so you can watch it on that, and you can get notifications when we go live. I know a lot of you are just watching on Twitter, probably.
Yeah, somebody said Donald is freaking out. And these last few days, I think he's been as unhinged as he's ever been, on Twitter at least. It kind of makes me wonder if John Kelly really is the chief of staff anymore.
Yeah, because it seemed like when John Kelly came in to become the chief of staff, Trump's tweeting went down significantly, and some of the crazy things he was saying on Twitter decreased significantly. So now, after these whole John Kelly allegations and accusations, it seems like he kind of lost some power within the White House. I don't know if maybe he's not actually the acting chief of staff to the same degree anymore.
I think that maybe Trump isn't really taking much of his advice. Another story which I'm kind of trying to work on here, I'm talking to a few people that kind of are in the know here, and it's Melania Trump. As you know, all these allegations about Trump's affairs have been coming up, and Melania's kind of been in the background a lot lately. She hasn't been seen with him as much.
Well, again, she took a separate vehicle to
the State of the Union.
Well, and to other events too.
Yeah. Well, basically, I'm being told by some people who know the area, are close to individuals who are close to people connected to Melania Trump. I'm not going to say any names because the individual I spoke to didn't want me to, but they said that Melania and Barron are actually not living in the White House at the current time. And for the last several weeks, or it might be a couple months now, that they have actually been living with Melania's parents in Potomac. And there's a huge Secret Service presence there over the last few weeks. So that kind of indicates that that's probably the case as well.
Yeah.
I can't confirm that 100%, but that's something that I'm hearing a lot about. And it definitely seems likely, given the fact that they're not they don't seem to be very close lately. They're not. You
Well,
don't see videos.
I saw a story. I think it was the recent allegation by the ex Playboy playmate. I forget what her name was. But she actually had a story. Trump brought her to Trump Towers when they were having an affair, and he actually pointed out that Melania has a separate suite from him, and said that she likes being by herself. So I mean, maybe this is just how their relationship is more of a relationship that's for show rather than a relationship of love. You know, we don't really know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a good read on it, but it definitely doesn't seem like they're too much in love with each other.
Yeah, and another rumor I heard, and this is from somebody that's kind of runs in the same circles as her, and that is that Melania actually has a prenup that specifies the longer she stays in the marriage, the more she will get, and that's might be reason why she's not leaving the president.
Well, yeah, with Trump's ego, that's not hard to believe.
Yeah,
you know.
And like I said, this is just one source that I got this information from, and they're from New York City, and they kind of know the same people. So take it for what it is.
There's a comment here from Paul B. 1922. He says, "I'm 96 years old, and I've a bullet from World War II in one leg." That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, wow.
Thanks for your service.
Thanks for watching. I'm honored to have you watching.
Let's see, we have a few more comments on Krassenstein Live, hashtag. Dougie Fresh, how's it going, Dougie? It's good to see you again. Says, isn't there enough in the public domain about Trump-Russia money laundering at least? Are people just ignoring this, or they just don't care? You know, I think there's a lot in the public domain about Trump perhaps laundering money, but at the same time, we don't have the hard evidence to really do an audit. The public hasn't seen tax returns. They haven't seen a lot of the business negotiations that went forward. I think Robert Mueller has all this information that's needed to bring money laundering charges, and I think we'll hear more about this in the future.
Yeah, I think it's just an information overload, a scandal overload. There's just so much information coming at us from all angles that I think that some things are being glossed over.
Yeah, well,
money laundering, I guess, isn't as sexy as say, treason or.
Well, that's the thing. Like, as Americans, are we really all that concerned about Trump's money laundering? Not as much so as his possible treason or conspiracy against the United States could be. So I think the main focus is on, did Trump conspire with Russia? Maybe the money laundering is tied into that, though, and that's something I think we'll have to wait and see. Wait and see what Mueller comes out with.
And I do think that this investigation is definitely headed in that direction. And I say headed in that direction, but I mean from a public information standpoint. I think that it's already in that direction behind the scenes. I think Mueller is months ahead of where the public is right now. For instance, I'm guessing that this last 13 indictment Russia influence campaign, I'm guessing he had that found out months and months and months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's well ahead of where anybody in the public or even the House and the Senate are right now.
Yeah. I'm going to just take a few of these. Somebody said, I love Seth's reporting. I'm guessing you mean Seth Abramson, and I totally agree. I love him. I follow him. He's incredibly informed. He knows what he's talking about. He doesn't have any inside information or anything, and he says that, but his background lets him really explain things to us. Somebody else said, are you sick of the term fake news? And yeah,
you know, the other day I used that term in talking about something. I think it was something not related to politics, but I used the term fake news, and after I did, I felt disgusted.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday. It's gaslighting pretty much, and gaslighting is when you blame your opponents or those against you for what you're doing, and kind of create a disconnect with reality. People don't know what's real and fake anymore, and that's exactly what Trump's doing, and that's exactly what Russia does to pretty much its entire population.
Yeah, that's how Russia's been running since the days of the Soviet Union.
And it's funny because fake news wasn't created by Trump. Fake news was actually created by Democrats and those against Trump in reporting the news that Russia was posting on Facebook last year, a year and a half ago. And then Trump took that term and quickly turned it around, and now fake news is pretty much meaningless. And that's what gaslighting is.
That's what Trump's ultimate goal here was. There's another question from Cindy on Twitter who asks, do you think Fox propaganda entertainment media will see any charges? And, that's a good question. I actually made a tweet, I think it was a few days ago, about Sean Hannity and Judge Jeanine. They're both they both spread conspiracy theories, and they kind of help. They've been working kind of to help Trump discredit Robert Mueller, discredit FBI. And the way I see it is, if Trump actually gets charged with obstruction of justice, I think Sean Hannity, I think Judge Jeanine, and I think other individuals at Fox News and other media outlets should also be looked at for conspiracy to obstruct justice. There's actually a charge, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and I think these two individuals, and I think there's others out there, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Robert Mueller is actually looking into them.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in here and say that they're looking at it. They're probably looking at it as a First Amendment issue, where we're reporters, we're the media, that they can't charge us. They can't charge us. But if there's actually direct communication between Hannity and Trump, where Trump is saying, "Hey, tell them this," and he's not.
We know that Sean Hannity and we know that Judge Jeanine have spoken to Trump in the past, and there's people who say that Trump actually tells Sean Hannity what stories to push.
And
that's entering into a conspiracy.
And the fact that they're doing this to try and delegitimize an investigation
would be a conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Yep. And that's exactly what it looks like. And I don't care if you're in the media. The First Amendment doesn't protect from that. The First Amendment protects you on the information you report, knowing that it's legitimate. If you know it's not legitimate and you report this information,
especially if you're reporting it as news, it would be one thing if Hannity was to say, "I spoke to Trump today, and he's saying this."
Yeah.
But if Hannity's reporting it as if it's fact, which he does a lot with his news, or he pushes it as an attack on the FBI or Robert Mueller, I think that's something that Mueller is going to actually look at.
Yeah, somebody said Hannity has a lot of plausible deniability, and I don't disagree with that. I think it will be incredibly difficult to actually convict them of a crime. But I think if they have information or even recorded phone calls between any of them and Trump, and there is a conspiracy there, I think that they have a chance.
My guess is there's not going to be recorded phone calls just because of privacy issues, and there's different warrants that are needed for that, and I don't think there's going to be that factor out there.
No, I don't disagree with that either. But yeah, and somebody brought up Hannity and Julian Assange, and there's definitely a connection there. We know that Assange went and private messaged a fake Hannity on Twitter, offering him information. So that means that if Assange is getting information from Russia and then passing it on to Hannity, who is then propagating that information to the public in order to help the president, that's a whole other issue. It depends what Hannity knows and what they know.
It would be interesting to see if Mueller tries interviewing Hannity to see if he lies to him about anything.
Yeah, get him for lying to the FBI. Freedom of speech, I think nothing can be done. Freedom of speech...
That only goes so far. Freedom of speech is you're allowed to... When it comes to the media, we actually were involved in a case that focused on freedom of speech. And when it comes to the media, you're allowed to report on news. You're allowed to report on things other people say. You are allowed to allow freedom of speech. Like, say if you run a website and if you run Facebook, you're allowed to allow people to type whatever they want. You're not held responsible for that, for other people's words. But when it comes to pushing fake stories and pushing stuff that is attacking the FBI or attacking Robert Mueller, if you're pushing these initiatives, and if you're working hand in hand with the person who is trying to obstruct justice, I think the ground gets a little shaky.
Yeah, if you're pushing these conspiracies in an effort to help cover something up, a crime up, that's a whole nother story.
Exactly. Like for example, they interviewed Trump and he said this stuff directly. You're protected by freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But if you're pushing this narrative without quoting someone yourself, if that's in order to obstruct justice or help somebody obstruct justice, then I would think legally you're entering into a conspiracy.
And somebody said, Facebook, how can they not be held responsible for anything? And that's the whole third party thing. Basically, the Communications Decency Act states that you're allowed to allow third parties to post on your website, and you're not, the web publisher, Facebook, is not responsible for what those third parties post.
You can look it up. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. It's Section 230 of the CDA, and basically says that websites, basically they're called internet service providers, like Facebook, like Twitter. If I was running a discussion forum, if I had comments under a news article on my site, and if somebody posts comments that are slanderous or that are recruiting criminal activity, the person who is allowing the publication of this, or the company allowing the publication of third-party speech, cannot be held criminally liable, and that dates back to the 90s.
Yeah, and we actually, I know some of you probably saw all those memes that people post on our tweets, replying, showing an article saying that we're indicted for wire fraud or whatever, which is totally untrue. We did go through a legal process because one of our websites was used by a group of criminals to defraud somebody. This was an internet forum. They made posts on the internet forum getting people to invest in this company, and the company was a scam. We did not know that this company was a scam, and basically the CDA and the First Amendment protects us because we didn't know what was going on, that these posts that were being made were actually posts for a fraudulent website. And it's a good thing. I know a lot of you are mad at Facebook, and Facebook should have done more, I would say. But from a legal standpoint,
Facebook's not responsible unless they knew that Russia was behind this, and they knew that Russia was committing a crime by posting these messages.
Exactly.
But you had to have proof that Facebook knew that a crime was taking place, and that they didn't do anything to stop it. That's the only way you can get Facebook. But just allowing anyone to post messages and not knowing that a crime is taking place, Facebook can't be held responsible. And they shouldn't be.
As aggravating as that might seem, there's the law's in place for a reason. That's to protect people that are unknowingly.
Well, it's to help the internet flourish. It's to help businesses on the internet flourish. And without this protection, the internet wouldn't be the internet.
Well, yeah, and if the U.S. created a law saying that Facebook is responsible, then Facebook's going to move to China, and China's going to employ 20,000 people or whatever.
And basically Facebook would say no more comments, no more posts. It would basically close Facebook and Twitter down. All social media would cease to exist. I mean, if that was the case, this video right here, me and Brian would be responsible for all your comments that we see.
Yeah, it's sort of in that direction.
That's where you're going with that. So you can't.
If we were hosting this on our server and somebody happened to say, I'm gonna go and kill such and such, is it fair that I'm responsible for what you said if you go and kill such and such? No, it's not fair, and that's what these laws protect.
All right, I don't know. I think we've touched on most of the major news today, at least of what we've seen so far. We never know, another indictment or something's going to be handed down later, or what's going to happen with the plea deal by Zwaan. But So I think we covered most of the topics, and thanks again for joining us. Remember to follow us on Periscope and also follow us on Twitter at Krassenstein, and I'm at Ed Krassen.
Yeah, and check out our YouTube channel. Just search for Ed and Brian Krassenstein.
Yeah. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We might be putting some additional videos up there. Like Brian said, just search for our names on YouTube, Ed and Brian Krassenstein, and you can subscribe, and that'll be great.
Somebody just said that they're going to go kill a spider, and we're going to be responsible. Just make it fast, okay? Use a shoe or something. I guess
that's a spider as an insect. That's not like code word for anything else, right?
Okay. I guess we'll see you next time. We might do one maybe on Thursday. Tomorrow I have some things to do, and I probably won't be able to do a live feed. But maybe Thursday or Friday, depending on what kind of news breaks. And just we'll stay in touch with you all. And thanks for watching.
Yeah. See you guys.